Hello everyone, and welcome back to one of these rambly talk videos where I don't actually cube or show you any cubes, but it's about cubes. So today's topic is the Valk3 Elite M. It's a very new puzzle. In fact, I don't think it's on the market yet. We are getting our batch, our first batch at least, on Monday the 16th. That's what the tracking numbers say for us. So after the weekend, we'll be getting the cube and it'll be shipping out. But this cube has been talked about for a very long time, and it's honestly, I think, one of the most talked about cubes in all of cubes. And that's because Chi teased it a really, really long time ago. Yeah, it really hasn't seen the market in any physical shape or form until very recently. So it's actually been 2 years since the Valk Power released, that we have a new flagship from Chi, and it's safe to say that the Valk is now Chi's flagship brand, and yeah, Chi's at least 3x3 flagship brand, and maybe for the other cubes as well, because their 4x4 and their 5x5 are both Valk. Of course, the 6 and the 7 are X-Man design. So this video will be talking about the Valk3 Elite, some history and design stuff, and hopefully you'll find it intellectually stimulating. So the Valk first came out in the summer of 2016, and it was one of those cubes that was really interesting because it's endorsed by a guy. It's like a living human being who is a competitive speed cuber, and we really haven't had this in the industry very much. I know we had it in the form of the Maru CX3 by our good friend Albert. But, you know, as good as Albert is at cubing, he's not Mats Valk, right? He's not a world record holder. So it's a different kind of caliber. And the other one was the high-end memory, which was the that 3x3. I think it was like a modified Alpha 5 that Drang High-End used for blind. And dude was really good at blind, had an unfortunate temper problem, so he didn't really last long in the WCA sphere. So yeah, those are the extent of the cubes associated with people. So as you can probably tell, the Valk was a very big deal. It came out, a lot of people liked it. It had a really cool design. It had a more rigid, stable design, but it was very fast, and you can lube it to be more buttery, but you can also set it up where it's really quick and smooth. So it was very flexible, and it had conical springs, which was really interesting. I think conical springs is one of the coolest ideas in all of springs, which is probably not very much, but conical springs are cool. You trust me on that. And it started winning stuff, right? Like the magnetic one we made before the factory or anybody else made it set a world record, and then years later it set another world record in Patrick Ponce. So yeah, 474, 469, and 474 was definitely one of my favorite cubing moments. Of course, it wasn't like strictly my moment because Mats was the one who set the record, but it really, at the time, it really proved the point that magnetic cubes were a thing and they were here to stay, and it's not some stupid gimmick, as a lot of people like to, you know, tell us in the past, oh, your magnetic technology is a stupid gimmick, just trying to, you know, extort more money from people. Maybe extort's a heavy word, but you know, people thought that it wasn't as legitimate as it is, and now this kid's getting world records. So good job. I was very happy. So that happened, and then a year later, Chi made the Valk Power, and the Valk Power was, I would say, it's quite a polarizing cube. It was not designed in such a way where I felt it was for the masses or for the general consumer. The cube was almost 100 grams. That's very heavy. No other cube I can name today that is like even close to being competitive is over 90 grams. So I think the YJMGC is like mid to high 80s, and that's already a little pushing it. So as you can imagine, 94 is pretty heavy. I don't know where exactly all the weight comes from. I think a lot of it comes from the core, where they used copper to reinforce the stability and the straightness of the screws. And you know, if you have copper chilling in your cube, it's probably going to add a little weight. So That is the weight was an issue that I think made the cube a little polarizing. Personally, while I like the feel of the cube, the my enjoyment of it would decrease in proportion to how long I was solving it. So like my first average like in like 20 solves would be great because the cube is pretty good, but then like solve number 40 I would be like, oh man, I'm tired, like my hands can't stand this. Of course, like I'm not the type of person to cube a lot. I do averages of 100 and stuff, so maybe I'm not the best measure for this, but personally it was a little difficult for me. But you know what, still Mats persevered and he still used it, and he still won Euros 2018, and Sean Villanueva most recently got second place at Worlds with it. So it's no slouch, it's a fantastic cube, and that's demonstrated by its results that you can see in competition. So that was cool, and I think that created the question, or it attracted the question, what is the Valk Elite going to be like, and how universally likable is it going to be, right? Because the Valk Power didn't seem that universally appealing because of how heavy it was. So a lot of people started to wonder, and now we have the answer. The answer is yes. I think Chi went to great lengths, and Mats himself went to great lengths to help design the product in a way where the maximum number of people can enjoy the product. And of course that's gratifying for Mats emotionally, and it's good for sales because then more people can get the cube and do better. So that's the direction it went, and it took 2 years to get there. I remember trying a very early prototype of the Valk Power. We had to service an M Team's Valk Power, not Valk Power, Valk Elite, more than a year ago, and we thought the cube was kind of clunky, and we were actually kind of concerned that they would release it in that condition. I think Mats also remarked that the cube in its early stages was a little unstable, so we're glad it didn't get there, and that they took their time to make something cool. So in terms of the cool stuff, let's talk about the features of this cube. So you have magnets that are interchangeable and springs that are interchangeable. So this cube actually has a theme that runs very different from the design trend of today, right? The design trend of today is not interchangeable but adjustable, right? You're talking about MGC Elite GAN cubes. They feature more adjustable features and not interchangeable, and they're trying to push the idea that adjustable is better than interchangeable. So it was very interesting for Chi to go in the opposite direction and make them interchangeable. Fortunately for Chi, the magnet centers are really easy to change because you just pop them out and you put them back in. It takes only 6 actions to pop them out, and then 6 very simple actions to put them back in. So very easy on that part. But I think Chi missed a really good opportunity, and I'm going to explain this opportunity. So Chi, if you're watching this, maybe you can take this opportunity. So the 96 magnets in a 3x3 is not a new concept. People in China as early as late 2016 and early 2017 were making Valk 3s using this concept, except this added a lot of weight to the cube, and it was kind of unmanageable with that many magnets and that much weight. But people were doing it in China. It wasn't a secret or anything. And I think Chi missed the opportunity to really advertise what the strengths are of the twin magnetic system, as they call it. It has the corner edge, which is normal in 3x3s or conventional, and it has center edge, which is the new feature they introduced. So I think they should have and could have done a lot more to tell people exactly why, technically why, this is better. All I can say as a layperson, without an engineering background, that you have a more universal and uniform magnetic field through a turn as you do it. But in the best light, assuming the best light, I would have loved if Chi said, yeah, this is why it's better. This is why the magnetism gives you better positioning. It doesn't mess up your M slices. This is a good thing. Everyone else doesn't have it, and therefore they're at a disadvantage. I really wanted them to do that, because at this point in time, it just kind of looks like, yeah, we got more magnets than you. So what, dude? It seems the connection between the more magnets and it being better is not fleshed out, or is not as fleshed out as I think it should have been, because they made a truly cool technology, right? Interchangeable center caps, which is also not a new concept. There was there were attempts to do that in the past, but it's new on the market. No one else has done it before, so I think they should have done more explaining this feature, because that's the only thing in this only feature in this cube that is actually very different from anything else in the market. So there's that. And the springs. So let's talk about the springs. These springs resemble GAN's GS springs. They're color-coded. They're little plastic pieces that contain different elasticity springs, and you swap them in and out, and you get a different feel. So the one thing that always annoyed me with GAN puzzles is they started off using a very like soft and loose spring, so it was kind of hard to experiment with, because the puzzle was way too fast for most people, and the company kind of chalked it up to, yeah, the China market liked like purple springs or whatnot, so we're just going to do purple springs and you can adjust them later. So for the competitive cubers around here, I don't think anybody uses purple springs. It's mostly green and yellow back in the day. No, the top solvers use the yellow springs very frequently. So it became a trial and error experiment where I had to take out the springs, put in new ones, and tension it to a degree that I thought it was even and good, and then play with it, and then decide that, oh yeah, I don't like these springs. I can go firmer, and then do that whole operation again and contort my wrist and turn the GAN tool, and just really annoying, and I hate it. GAN solved that problem by having a numerical IPG. So what that does is it doesn't force you to tension the cube very meticulously. You just click it and then you have even tensions. So it makes it less intimidating to change the springs, and that was a really smart idea. I thought that was cool because it took out half of the frustration of doing so. So GE gets part of this right. They have 3 springs. They have soft, medium, and firm, and these start you off with the medium one. So if you feel like it's too firm, you go one down, and if you feel like it's too soft, you go one up, and if you like it, then you just do nothing and you're happy, right? So that I think they got right, because that then only requires one action in order to get to something that you like. So that's cool. But what about not frustrating your user with tensioning the cube, right? So I think that issue has been a thing for such a long time, and it's been actually solved using numerical nuts. If they're going to imitate a GAN technology like the interchangeable springs encased in, colorful pieces of plastic, then I think they should have taken another step to make sure that tensioning the cube is straightforward. Because undoubtedly a person will have to take off the springs and put them on again if they want to experiment, and by that point, hopefully you don't annoy them. Right? It makes me feel like the magnets are like the interchangeable caps. That's so cool. This is 2019. It belongs in 2019. This technology feels, honestly, it feels like it went back in time, and it felt like 2017, where you have a thing, you have to unscrew it all the way and take it out, you put the other one in, then you screw it back in, and then you put the cube together, you tension the cube, and you work really hard. So, I kind of wish more thought was put into that feature of making it easier and less annoying for the user to actually use the feature. The other thing has to do with features is they give you a lot of stuff in the accessories pack, but I don't think they give you anything to contain or to hold the accessories, and I think it would have been really smart if they had like a small tin or a hard case where you can put your extra center caps and springs in. That would have been really smart, and you know, if they are advertising how quick it is to change the magnets in the centers, they're doing that presumably because there is a need to do that quickly, right? And you can only do that if you have them on you, right? And it looks kind of silly if I'm carrying, like, you know, a Ziploc bag with those things in it. It just required more work for me. But if they gave me a branded bag that says the Valk Chi, you know, and you can carry the accessories in the pack, then I think they would have gotten free advertising on me, and I would have carried a Valk bag everywhere with my pieces so I can swap them. I think swapping them, of course, when you can argue that when people find their setting, they kind of just stick to it and don't move. But you can see maybe a person does OH on the weaker magnetic setting and two-handed on the stronger one, and they want to switch in between really fast, and they need a place to store the things. So that's my feeling on that. But overall, I think it's a fairly good cube. It has a lot of character. You know, the feeling is pretty unique. When you're turning slow, it has a very satisfying, kind of creamy, buttery, soft feel. But it has like a slight crunch, so all the pieces inside are moving against each other in a very satisfying way. And when you're turning fast, it has that buttery turning sensation, but also it's crunchy, and you can feel the feedback when you alternate layers. So that's pretty cool, and definitely at 76 grams, it's a very good weight. And yeah, with all those features, they really did a good job managing its heftiness. I use it for two-handed solving. I think the magnetic feature, the twin magnetic feature, it's a little too much for OH, and yeah, I just can't handle it very well. In fact, I didn't handle the twin magnet design very well either in the beginning. I felt really clumsy and honestly like stupid using it because I couldn't do the M slices. I felt very uncoordinated. But then I cubed more, and eventually it got better. So I think it's something that you have to get used to. So if you like the idea of like a crunchy but also like buttery smooth in between cube, I think it's worth the time to get used to. And honestly, after I got used to it, I could still go back to normal cubes and be okay. So it's not like using this cube will completely ruin your ability to appreciate other cubes. So there's that. And yeah, it's got character. Of course, it's more expensive, but you know, it has more features, and it's a much more polished product and more universally likable. So I don't think the price is all that insane, and it's still cheaper than GAN. But yeah, the Valk line is a very special line of cubes, and yeah, it's because the cubes have aged fantastically. You know, the people still use the Valk today to set records. I mean, Timon has crazy averages using angstrom Valk, and you know, the world records have been set on it. Nam used the Valk a long time for yeah, a lot of his competition solves, and he's a great cuber. So the Valk has aged really well, and of course the Valk power has also brought in a lot of competition wins and successes, and is being used and endorsed by Mats himself, who I have a lot of respect for, because he uses the actual product when he's, you know, endorsing it. It's not like in other sports where a lot of athletes endorse a product but they're not actually using it. I play tennis. That happens a lot in tennis, and there were lawsuits on that where manufacturers had to say, yeah, Federer endorses this racket. He doesn't use it, he endorses it. Which basically means he says it's good and you should buy it because he's worth millions of dollars and his opinion is like credible, right? So yeah, pro tennis rackets are a lot heavier and have different balances than consumer tennis rackets. If I used a racket as heavy as like a Federer, I would probably injure myself. It's not as strong as he is. So there's that. But in cubing, Mats, you know, his endorsement and his use of the cube is very consistent. And that's really cool. And even though the Valk power wasn't universally likable, in my opinion, he stood by it. He won European championships, humongous competition with tremendous competitors. So yeah, it says a lot about the guy, and yeah, his conviction and commitment to the cube. So this is near the end of the video. I'm really happy Qi did this, and this is a cool feature, and it will be interesting to see how they advertise the feature and how they try to convince people that 96 is better than 48, and how other companies will view this product and compete against it. You know, sometimes the other companies will say, oh, this is cool, like we can do that too, and then they do that. Or they're like, yeah, we don't think this is worth it, we think we're better, and this is overly complicated with no scientific or technical benefit, so we're just going to ignore it. I want to see what happens and how other companies respond to it. That's interesting. And for the next design, I hope that Qi makes adjusting something that's normally tedious easier, so that it's more considerate for the user, and the user feels like they're in 2020 or 2021, whenever they decide to make a new cube, and not 2017. Make an accessories pack that has a carrying case or something where you can hold the cube, or hold at least the accessories, so that people can carry the accessories around, because that you get a lot of branding points for that. But yeah, that captures my thoughts on the cube. I hope this was informative and useful, and we'll be releasing an in-depth review on the cube on the Cubicles channel, so if you want to check that out, go ahead. But chances are, if you watch my stuff, you'll probably watch the Cubicles and a much smaller channel. Alright, see you later, and catch you in the next video.